This is News Gang on Kenya's Choice 2022, and we're back. We're talking about, what the good we have seen with devolution. But Francis, one key principle to remember.
Absolutely. Resources must follow functions. You see, there's no need of talking about the successes of devolution without necessarily giving the necessary resources to the devolved functions. There's no point of the center, i.e. national government, continuing to hold onto resources for functions that have been devolved. If health has been devolved, devolve or release the resources that are supposed to be financing health. There's no need of having the resources at Afia House.
85% of the funds for the health ministry, for the health function, are domiciled at the national government. 15% about or thereabouts goes to the county governments, yet health is devolved.
Precisely. So we must truly live the spirit and the letter of devolution. Take the resources to the ground so that even as we ask the governors to be transparent, to be accountable, we must also hold them accountable for the necessary resources. There's no need of asking county governments to employ nurses and doctors, yet they are not being paid. It makes zero sense. I mean, devolve the functions and follow them with the necessary resources so that now we can pin the governors on their implementation for resources that have been taken to them. While at the same time, it is also important to remind governors, those who have been elected for the first time, those who are making a comeback, and those who are continuing, that it is also important to devolve the good things and not devolve the bad manners of the national government. You know, devolution of largesse, pilferage, those are things that are undesirable. This is the third term of devolution. I mean, this will be 15 years. A 15-year-old system of administration is mature enough to know what to do, what not to do. Pilfering the public resources is one of the things that must not be done.
Yeah, I mean, I think we devolved our bad manners as well, and a little bit of a hangover from central government to... Yes.
There's something that ought to be mentioned in relation to availing resources to follow functions, and that is political goodwill. Because if you do not have political goodwill at the political center, then it becomes a bit of a problem. We have seen very unhealthy tugs of war between the national government and the county governments. To the point of,
Remember when governors were protesting on the streets? You remember that? That was last year. Yes. Holding hands and
that is ridiculous. It's it's the contrast picture of what we saw today, which is a lot of civility. I mean, we are Kenyans. We have a more sophisticated political system in place. But now, you can have a sophisticated system without sophisticated people who will stick on. And this, I want to say of the national government. The national government sometimes finds itself caught up in the old mentality. It's a mindset lock. They still think, development is a gift. I should go to a village and announce that this road will be tarmacked now that you guys have behaved. It's really the old way of doing things. And unfortunately, talking of devolved bad manners, it has also gone to the governors. Where they actually think, oh, you, Ward C, you've behaved this time, you've given me a little bit more votes than last time, so I'll give you some development. It is a mindset problem. We have a beautiful arrangement, but now we need to have beautiful people to manage it. You have to have people who actually have the mindset that works with this very civilized, very sophisticated governance structure. Too tired, the executive of the county is the governor, and he runs a cabinet and things like that. Now, if the center keeps sabotaging the counties, then it becomes a bit of a problem. And I remember countless times, Francis, you covered from Parliament those wrangles of delays in disbursement of funds to the counties. And of course, the other thing that needs to be fixed is the cost of running those counties, because the disbursements are going straight to recurrent expenditure.
70% plus.
Yes, so you're going to pay these advisors and others. It's terrible. So as we talk of that evolution, that evolution should also not be too slow. It should move at a certain pace, because we are wasting many opportunities, as some of the well-meaning governors have proved, that you can actually transform those counties a lot faster if you just do the right thing. But the center also must end the lip service game. And when you look at the national government, current, former, and those who aspire to lead it, they have been very good at lip service, extremely good at lip service. Counties cannot afford another 5-year term of lip service.
Yeah. And Yvonne, speaking of bad manners, corruption, we mentioned it a bit, but now I'm trying to remember how many governors were named in various different corruption scandals. And we saw several of them going into Integrity Center, wakiohojiwa, wakitolewa. There are some who are
still in court.
Who are still in court, who still have cases. Some who are named in more than one scandal, 2, 3, 4.
Some bad from accessing office.
Accessing office. Some, all those. And sometimes you look at when you hear a governor has been implicated in 2, 3, 4 different corruption scandals, and then I don't want to name names, but there are some who are back. They've been re-elected despite all that. And sometimes I wonder whether people really care about the fact that someone has been hauled to court or is being investigated because of 1, 2, 3, 4 things, about those same resources that are supposed to be used to make people's lives easier and better and those services they need. And I think even also looking at the politics, and Linus was talking about it, is now that process of impeaching a governor and what we saw in the previous in the previous terms. How politics came into it in terms of there were those who, yes, were impeached by the MCAs as per law, then wanafika katika bunge, inaishia hapo. Ama kuna wale wanapelekwa hapo, wanatimuliwa, depending on where you stood politically at the time. And you know, the law was set for a reason. The fact that whatever reasons the MCAs had for deciding to what to impeach you, when you have an overwhelming number of them coming out and saying hatumtaki huyu kwa sababu hii na hii na hii, but then going ahead because of the politics of the day, someone is brought back. I think those are some of the things we need to look at, the interferences of politics in the running of government. I know we cannot separate that, but county governments are too important to mess around with, especially to the people right there on the ground who serve directly
need their
with
services.
those devolved functions. There are 14 of them, including one of the most important, which is health. And I was listening to some of the speeches by the new governors when they were speaking, and a lot of them were talking about how they are promising to do this and that, tukuwe na madawa hospitalini, tukuwe na madaktari, uguzi na vifaa and all that. When we've had so many instances of how wahudumu wa afya waki-strike, and their main plea usually is, iache kuwa devolve, irudi kwa serikali, maybe our problems would end. But then I think devolved system, counties are too important to mess around with, I think.
Yvonne, easier said than done. I listened to what many of the governors were saying, and I was impressed by
the promises
they were making. But easier said than done. There are some new governors who have kicked out governors who are sitting because they've probably said one thing or the other in terms of the promises that they made, but were unable to fulfill the promises. So it becomes easier to say than to do. And for quite a number of them, I dare say, while it was their first day in office, it could also be as well their first day out of that office, in the journey to get out of that office. Why? Because they will be held accountable for the promises they made. And remember, they had opponents who will go back to the ground and start decampaigning them from day one. That is the unfortunate bit about our politics. And lastly, we must also talk about the importance of county assembly members and the senators. County assembly members insofar as the question of how much do they represent the people who elected them at the ward level, how much do they oversight the county governments, and how many laws do they make that will be easy or will make it easy for service delivery in their counties. And I remember in this very same platform we said, as you go to the polls on 9th of August, please make sure that you elect a competent member of the county assembly, a competent senator. This is now where it will come to play. If you elected incompetent MCAs and senators, the 19 billion, the 10 billion, the 6 billion, the 3 billion that will be allocated to your county as shareable revenue will be pilfered, will be misused, because you ended up electing a person, one, who has no capacity to make laws, to represent you fully, and to make sure that the resources that are allocated to your county are put into good use. That's it.
Yeah, just my final thought on that one is, I think counties also need to continue to find a way to increase their own source revenue, because that's a big thing. Instead of waiting for the shareable revenue that comes from the national government, I think one of the counties that has, the highest of that is Narok, and that's largely due to the Masai Mara. But there's many others, Nairobi as well, but there's many others that are also, trying to do that. So one of the important things is to be able for them to be able to generate their own revenue that then puts them, in better position to be able to provide some of the services that they want to. I want to mention this in passing because I want us to move to Nairobi County. Just also to note some of the comeback kings, 8 of them, 8 governors who were kicked out in 2017, made a comeback. Ken Lusaka in Bungoma, Benjamin Cheboy in Baringo, Simon Kachape in West Pokot, Julius Malombe makes a comeback to Kitui County, Nadif Jama in Garissa, Ahmed Abdullahi in Wajir, Isa Timami in Lamu, Joshua Irungu in Laikipia, and there's also 7 senators who are now governors. So those are just some of the interesting things and numbers. I'd like us to talk about Nairobi for a moment, because something big happened in Nairobi today. We all remember the deed of transfer that was signed by the national government and the former governor, Mike Sonko, transferring 4 of the key functions of the Nairobi County to the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. That seemingly came to an end today, and Nairobi is a big county getting the highest shareable revenue, right? 19 billion? 19 billion this financial year. I want us to now listen to Johnson Sakaja at his swearing in. And I was talking about a city that is working again. Let's listen.
On this day, August the 25th, in 2012, Neil Armstrong, who was the first person to set foot on the moon, died at 82. He accomplished that at age 38. Which is a year older than me at that time. And what I really admired about him was the ability to dream. If Neil and his team were bold enough to dream to be the first people on the moon, what is stopping us as Nairobians, including the 7-year-olds out there like I was, from hoping for a working city? I don't think it is too much for us to ask for. We can do it.
So that is Governor Johnson Sakaja. For many of us, because, in some of these places, especially where the 2-term governors, some of those names, the old names, still roll off the tongue. So, you still have to remind yourself that, who are we talking about now? So Governor Sakaja Johnson, just saying, I don't think it's too much to ask for to get a city that is working. Linus, what's your take on what happened in Nairobi today? County number 47, a very important one, and one that has seen, quite a bit of movement. I think Nairobi County has had how many governors? 4?
4 now.
This is the 4th.
Yeah. This is the 4th, yeah. And it tells you something about the importance of Nairobi. First, as a seat of the national government, it always matters who is the governor, which is why we had this odd arrangement where the Nairobi Metropolitan Services was constituted to sort of deal with the weaknesses of the governor of the time, which is Mike Sonko. Take some of those services, place them in the hands of a unit, an administrative unit that is basically run by the national government.
Yep.
I think we spoke here, and one of the concerns I expressed at the time is, again, the question of reluctance on the part of the center to accept that devolution is devolution. So if you want to run Nairobi, then make sure you field as a party, the candidate that you actually want and you see fit to hold that position. Because I don't think further down the line it'll be easy to do this Nairobi Metropolitan Services sort of intervention, which I think was declared illegal at some point.
Yes,
by the courts. And indeed it is illegal because it was a parallel arrangement. I think Johnson Sakaja sleeps well tonight. It's going on way more easily than I think he expected it. Because there is a standoff right now in terms of the outcome of the presidential election. We know where President Uhuru Kenyatta stands and in as far as the issue of Nairobi Metropolitan Services does. We know he supports Raila Odinga for presidency. And of course, there's always been the question of, will the NMS term be extended? Yeah. There was talk of extending it to all the way to November. So had he got the warn, I mean, we would be discussing now and saying, how long will what will the NMS be doing going forward? Because again, it has been operating in terms along the lines of political division. But in terms of Johnson Sakaja, he's had a very rough ride to the present. Very rough in terms of questions that were raised about his qualification to run for office of governor. I think at a personal level, he'll need also to pay attention to the issue of building trust. Because there are those people, there are those voters, there are those, whether even just independent observers, who perceived him differently after the university degree saga. Because there were questions of whether Johnson Sakaja can be straight with people, whether he's telling you the truth, whether he's lying about who he is and where he stands. And now, you know, we have him talking of lofty things like, there was that analogy of going to the moon. There are these across the table things that he needs to deal with, because increasingly trust and ability to be trusted is going to be part of leadership. Nairobians want to know that they have a truthful governor, somebody who will tell them the truth about himself and the truth about his plans and the truth about his execution of office. So I don't think he should jump this issue. I saw the deputy president today saying, oh, God came through and all that. Yeah, God also recognizes the way people organize things, whether it's about requiring candidates to have certain requirements to run for office. I think we have these earthly requirements that we still need to meet, even as candidates running for office. And I think Johnson Sakaja has that little issue to fix, because there are people who now perceive him differently from how they saw him as a senator. The issue of the degree, the controversy about the degree, and remember, it was never settled. It was left hanging. I think he needs to settle it, whether it's through the court process or whichever way. He needs to settle that issue and put it behind him, so that at least trust can be built that he can tell Nairobians the truth.
Yes. And Yvonne Lena spoke about the importance of Nairobi and this whole NMS, Nairobi Metropolitan Services matter, where today the Director General, Mohamed Badi, said that they'll start handing over the 14 functions back to the county government from next week. 4 functions, my apologies, next week. The 4 functions are county health services, county transport services, county public works, utilities and ancillary services, and county physical planning and development. Now, I don't know why I keep remembering how NMS came to be, with the drama that surrounded the signing of the deed of transfer at State House. That was in February 2020, by the then Governor Mike Sonko, and then with the blessing of the President.
His state of mind at the time,
of course, he denies it. He said, but then now NMS came into being. And there have been hits and misses with the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. And I think Johnson Sakaja spoke about them, I think, a day or 2 ago when we was here on the show. And he says, yes, there are things that were done and done well, and there are things that need to be improved. And you can speak about the health sector, for instance, and looking at how they really tried to...
24?
Yes, 24, yes. Yeah, because they really tried to just reduce the congestion at the Nairobi, at the Kenyatta National Hospital, at Mama Lucy Hospital, because that's where everyone used to flock to, because there were no other hospitals around them. But then now they had this health center here, hospital here, and the President really went around, opening them all over the place, from Inushirika to Soweto to Sinai to Lungalunga to Ruta Satellite to Mukuru Kwanjenga. There were all these hospitals that were opened. Whether they're providing the services that they are expected to provide is another matter. We did a feature some time back, And there were places where, even in the middle of the night, you are getting someone to attend to you, you could get services, you get medication. But there are more that where there were no services, either hospitali imefungwa, hakuna mtu, hakuna dawa, unaambiwa nenda nunua dawa.
Yeah, because our hospital isn't just a building.
Isn't just a building, so there have to be services provided. I think those are some of the things that Johnson Sakaja has to look into. Yes, the hospitals are there, but are they providing the services that are required? There are issues to do with water and sanitation in the city. There are hits and misses there. Transport. Remember, there were all these plans to try and
the Green Park Terminal.
The Green Park Terminal.
Do you know how many trials they've had for the Green Park Terminal?
Yes,
5.
5, and we're still not there.
And all of them have not been accepted, both by you know, the PSVs and passengers.
Because
for a number of them, walking from, you know, where the Green Park Terminal is into the city centre is quite some distance. So that brought up the issue of consultation and public participation, and whether these are things that the residents of Nairobi do in fact need or want.
Agreed.
And is convenient for them. I just wanted us to listen to, now that you talked about, you know, the return of those 4 key functions. General Mohammed Badi was present at the swearing-in of Johnson Sakaja, and he did talk about the NMS and, you know, when we would start to see a handover of power back.
NMS was created for specific mandate, and I'm very happy to report, Your Excellency the Governor, that NMS has accomplished all the tasks given to do within the 2 years. And the extra tasks that we have taken on board, which are ongoing projects, I'll be more than happy to hand over. I know you'll make this great county prosper. We will start the process of handing over from next week.
Yeah, so from next week, Francis.
It was inevitable that those functions will be handed over back to the county government. And I would say, for this simple reason, the 4 functions are at the heart of the county government management. Those are the big functions. Those are the big money functions. And so without those 4 functions, then your stay as governor is almost on
things
paper.
like rent from city council housing, from markets, roads, planning. Yeah, there's
those are the big money functions. So taking them back to the county government was inevitable. In any case, there was talk of extending that term to October or thereabout. But because there's a substantive governor now, then it is obvious that those functions must be handed back to him. And give Sakaja the benefit of doubt. Why? Because he's been Senator of Nairobi County. He's been a nominated member of the National Assembly. Basically, he is a Nairobian, and the expectation is that he would understand what are the challenges in Nairobi. And that expectation has now translated to a responsibility, because it is one thing to understand what ails Nairobi, but now the functions and the responsibility to make them resolved has been handed over to him. And he comes in with an advantage in the sense that he has been Senator of Nairobi. So the expectation is that he understands
what he was oversighting at the Senator.
What are the specific challenges they identified insofar as the challenges facing the county are concerned. He now has an opportunity to implement them. However, these are the immediate challenges that he faces. One, bringing order to the county government of Nairobi. Because, truth be told, it has been one very disorderly place.
It's chaotic,
Chaotic. So he, first of all, must bring order. Number 2, courage. Courage to deal with that word, cartels. And you see, these cartels, sometimes
I find... naming them. We just give this shadowy word of cartels.
And sometimes I think once in a while, that big name is used to run away from responsibility. Because if functions are not delivered, if responsibilities are not taken, the blame goes to cartels. I think it is important for him to gather the courage to deal with that which ails Nairobi. While doing it, he will disappoint quite a number of people. He will annoy quite a number of people. Because, for example, if you're dealing, let's say, with the question of mapping business areas, it will not be possible to, let's say, ask shop owners and people who have businesses, especially in the city center, to pay licenses, while at the same time they have to deal with other traders who are not paying taxes. So these need to map the city, what needs to be done, where, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Second challenge, basic service delivery, water, sewerage system. Garbage collection. Those are immediate challenges. Yeah. Now, what he requires, in my opinion, are two things: order and courage.
Yeah, you know, he said, you want a Nairobi that's working again. And he says he grew up in the same neighborhood that I grew up in. Mimi de Mwangara bana.
Mimi de Mwatao.
Mimi de Mwatao. And I remember what New Ngara, Old Ngara, Racecourse, you know, all of these looked like. I remember when it was easy to walk to town. I remember when, you know, City Council would come, was it every other day, you know, to collect our garbage, when we had, you know, constant running water, when the Nairobi City Council houses that we grew up in were well maintained, painted, and you know, that sort of thing, and that there was the opportunity for low-income earners to have adequate and safe housing. And that really is what City Council is. City Council houses are for many of us who couldn't afford to live in you know, other places. And right now, I know there's, you know, the talk of upgrading that. You know, we've seen Pangani and we've seen a number of others. But I know, and I say this because, you know, I grew up there and I know what we discuss every day is that even as you upgrade Nairobi and you upgrade those houses, that they are still within reach and affordable for the many Nairobians who need it. So those are some of the issues and those are some of the fears. That's why you see people don't want to move out when there's this talk of upgrading, because now you're going to charge, you know, how much for rent. But there was a time when Nairobi just, you know, it really made sense. And that was when we were younger. So maybe he has the opportunity to do that, and it's a tall order. So I hope he can match up to it. Even halfway, he'd have done something.
But it's, it's also a question of trust, LK, as you come in. It's also a question of trust.
Yeah.
So that if you tell people this is what is going to happen, they must trust you.
Yeah.
Remember, Nairobi County is unlike other 46 counties. This is the county that receives the largest share of shareable revenue every financial year. 2022-2023, 19 billion. You've not even spoken about the on-source revenue. So this is a county that has in excess of 20-something billion shillings as a budget. So if well utilized, these are resources that can make a fundamental difference, a fundamental change. And some of the challenges that we've seen in the first term of Kidero, the second term of Sonko, or do I say the half term of Sonko and another half term of Kananu,
yes,
and now Sakaja, tells you some of the challenges that Nairobi faces. And 1 is leadership, 2 is trust, 3 is courage, and 4 is the ability to deliver.
Absolutely. Linus?
Yes, Johnson Sakaja has to break what I want to call the Nairobi mayor culture, which is the longest running curse this city has suffered. Because elected leadership in Nairobi has rarely ever delivered for Nairobi. Nearly every leadership that was elected into positions of responsibility in Nairobi was inspired by different reasons to seek those positions. Nairobi is a very lucrative place to run. Yeah. Whether you're doing something as small as collecting garbage or something as major as disposing the land that is in the name of the county government and before that the city council of Nairobi. Yeah. Which is why right through our history as a city, the city of Nairobi has never really settled. The leadership in Nairobi has always been a restless place. You can go way back to the 80s when elected mayors could not deliver, and at some point, the then President Daniel Arap Moi appointed Fred Gumo to be the chairman of the Nairobi City Commission.
Yes, yes.
Then the City Commission went on and failed, just like everybody else that preceded it. Because Nairobi is yet to get a combination of leaders driven by nothing else but integrity and the drive to deliver services to the people. Nairobi has been seen as the place to get rich. if you occupy those positions, I mean, just look at what happened today. I think we had a court case on the ESCC.
Yeah, millions.
An officer earning about, what, 21,000 shillings. He is a millionaire. Yeah. Have you stopped have you paused for a moment to think how many others are in that city hall that have not been discovered by the ESCC? How about the elected leaders who come in and go? What do they come with and how do they leave? Because I would even bet a cow for Francis that you do a lifestyle audit of leaders who go into Nairobi leadership, see what they had before they went in, and see what they have a short time as they get out. Because it's a place where resources flow, and they flow very, very, very easily. So the first thing that Sakaja really has to confront is the cultural problem at City Hall. Yeah. A cultural problem that is not committed to leadership and service delivery. Other issues are the priority, not the leadership, not the collection of garbage, not the improvement of services to the people. There's something he said during the debate, which sounded to me like an idea whose time has come. And that is dividing Nairobi into boroughs that are manageable, so that you have smaller units that can actually do the basic work. Right. Instead of this huge, humongous thing that runs from City Hall, formless, shapeless, too many centers of authority that will lead us into a lot of problems. And I think there was some sincerity in trying to have the NMS because City Hall was not going to deliver. Now, Sakaja has to contend with the absence of NMS, now he's military-led, you know, there's some sense of order there. It's back to City Hall, where he has to deal with the county assembly and also the city officials, some who have served for a very, very long time, and they are the institutions that really house the old ways of doing things in Nairobi City Hall. So for me, Francis, it's down to, first of all, the commitment and the part of the new governor to confront this culture. And I say this knowing that he's been senator for the last 5 years and also member of parliament at some point. So he knows Nairobi. And now, no more excuses. Do it.
That's a good place to end it. We want to wind up.
Yes, it's.
You're the one who does this. That's why I'm like, okay, so how do we do this?
We've not had final words zetu zile za kila mtu.
We haven't in a while, yeah. But today,
since before elections.
That's right. So nani
careful. Wacha nianze leo. Wacha nifungue shule.
Wait, who's starting?
Wacha nifungue shule.
Oh, unataka kufungua? Oh, okay. Sawa. Go for it, Jamila.
Actually, literally, you're opening some school. Okay.
Where, jamani? Okay. On the memo tonight,